In this video, I talk about why and how I learned a new language for dating, and what benefits I got out of the whole experience. I'm Mike, long-distance fiance and a nurse. On this channel, we reflect on intentions and experiences to produce a fuller life. I want to talk about why I forced myself to learn Tagalog, the national language of the Philippines. For dating, I identify as an American by birth and citizenship, but many of my values and upbringings are still strongly Filipino. However, one of the big things that was missing from my upbringing was the Filipino language. I heard it often, but I didn't understand much of anything. America is a big stirring pot for many cultures, but after the first generation immigrants, the original culture starts to dilute a little bit in the following generation. That's what I am, diluted. And I don't want to date someone who likes me for my citizenship or my status or what I own. I want her to love me for me, even if I can't express myself in Tagalog so well. But anyway, if I want to date a Filipino girl, I have to know the language. I mean, I could try to be cute and try to pronounce little Filipino words in here, but it bothers me when you try to speak Tagalog, but they think, oh, it's so cute. Psh, I'm a man. Come on, fellas, do you like it when girls call you cute? And you're trying to be as serious as possible? Mike, why don't you just talk to a girl who just speaks English already? Well, Mike, there are just some girls worth chasing for. Psh, loser. Psh, whatever. I wasn't taught Tagalog. My parents tried to introduce it when we were little, but they didn't want us to be confused by the time we had kindergarten, so it wasn't a priority. And it didn't even stick when my parents tried to introduce it later. At this point, I'm American, with Filipino appearance, and identify as both. Now when it comes to dating, I discovered that it was less of what I thought the girl wanted me to be, and more of me being who I actually was. Okay, a mix of both. But I continually present myself to her with my established identity. But the problem was, I didn't know who I was. Truth be told, I didn't have much luck talking to girls in English. So what makes me think that I could have a better chance in Tagalog? Little did I know that finding my identity had its roots in my upbringing, which is embracing the culture of Filipinos. Although I lacked much confidence in high school to speak to most girls that were out of my league, I felt like I didn't quite meet someone else who complimented my identity. I mean, yeah, boys and girls, they compliment one another in comments, share similar interests, favorite colors, future aspirations, and the like. But I never felt like any of these girls brought out me. It wasn't until my junior year in high school when a new kid happened to transfer into the school. She was from California, and she was just like me. We hit things off, we jived, we complimented one another, and we grew apart. In retrospect, it's important to acknowledge that I didn't just like this girl because she was part Filipino. It was because part of me was able to come out and be myself. My school didn't have a lot of Filipinos to begin with, but at least with her, whether she was a love interest or not, I was able to share my experiences growing up in a Filipino home, make fun of that experience, and we were just able to understand a little bit more. And we weren't just able to understand one another, but even more of ourselves. Although being American was not only a privilege, but it was actually a new category in itself. But it didn't mean that I had to renounce the Filipino in me. These thoughts were just subconsciously going through my head until I went to the Philippines for nursing school. Then I realized I wasn't just American, but I was really Filipino, and that I really liked Filipino girls. However, not all of them spoke English, and it was difficult to make fun with them because sometimes the expressions and the jokes didn't translate well, and what was funny to Americans wasn't funny to Filipinos. Some of the Filipinos know English, but don't speak it, and some of it is broken, and some people know how to speak both languages, but don't know how to translate it well to English. Now, none of this mattered until I had a crush who spoke mostly Tagalog. Now again, I don't consider the Philippines a sense of home, but I did feel like I blended in a little bit because I kind of understood the Filipino way. Quick rant, I don't like to play the American card. I've been told before oh, Filipino girls will fall for you because you own a car, or fall for you because you're American. And I thought that was just pretty arrogant. I generally want to be positive on this channel, but I just want to put it out there that this kind of attitude is a no-no for me. So just as much as some people may say that Filipino locals would be so fortunate and be so lucky if they could marry an American, actually I think it could go both ways, because I think Americans would be so lucky and fortunate to marry a Filipino. The American visa is nice, but if you're gonna marry into a curse, your American visa don't mean nothing. Whatever. Anyway, I just want to rid the idea that I can win a relationship because of what status and what citizenship I owned. I wanted someone to want me, to love me for me. I wanted to be in a relationship with a Filipino because there was something wholesome that I appreciated there. I mean, besides all the pancit and the Shanghai lumpia that our friends enjoy so much, there's just something about the way of life. The hospitality, taking things slow, family first, and respect in a different dimension. Giving titles to each person's name. Kuya Mike, Ate Leanne, which is is pretty much like older siblings, older brother, older sister. So I'm American, but I just wanted to just dive deep into this Filipino world. I wanted to connect with Filipinos. And as much as we like to say that English is one of the top languages spoken in the world, I felt like for the first time, English was my crutch. My relationship with Filipinos could only go so far. With my US citizenship, I could cross borders easily. However, just because I spoke English and I didn't speak anything else but English, I still couldn't cross boundaries and obstacles to a deeper relationship to people's cultures that were foreign to mine. I'm American, raised by Filipino parents, but I can't bond with Filipinos. So I need to like rehab my inner Filipino and start speaking Tagalog. Although English is one of those top languages in the world, it didn't matter if the world you wanted to be in didn't speak that language. I had to develop Filipino mic. I had to take matters in my own hand. I couldn't rely on my parents, and I couldn't rely on my college Filipino teacher. So here are some things that I did to change and the challenges I faced. I learned Tagalog online. I had Filipino class as a foreigner, but it wasn't the best. I wanted to go further than what was already given. I mean, we could do all the skits, we could do all the role playing and all the songs, but I want to construct my own sentences. I want to hold a conversation. So I searched the internet, I googled whatever resources I could, and I just took the free resources. I'll leave some links in the description if those resources still exist. So in Filipino class, there was some phrases and some constructions of sentences and expressions that I just couldn't understand. Here are two phrases. Siya ay maganda. She's beautiful. Ang ganda niya. It's like, what's the difference? But I never got the explanation. More often than not, you would refer to the latter. You're in a conversation with somebody and you're referring to a girl, you'd be like, ang ganda niya? Like there's a little taste to it. I don't hear most people using the former. Siya ay maganda or siya'y maganda. No, I don't hear that often. In addition, I wrote notes to be able to read and construct the sentences. Using a notepad, I just wrote a little bit at a time, copying the sentences that I saw in the online articles, and I would just switch the words around. I texted. Apparently, Filipinos were some of the fastest texters in the world because of their shorthand, the ABC style. Click, 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 click. Yeah, I would get some of those shorthand texts, and I didn't quite understand because I wanted to see things like written out. With more texting, it allowed me to read more Tagalog that varied. To help reinforce this, I spent more time with my Filipino friends than my American friends. I could always spend time with my American friends in America, especially the ones that live here in New Jersey. But I couldn't always have that access to a community of, Tagalog-speaking people. And I have no regrets. In the end, it took me like a good 2 to 3 years to be conversational at Tagalog. But just for small talk. Nothing official. I became more adapted in the culture. But anyway, I did it. I'm at that point where I could hold a decent conversation. But backtracking, the girl that kind of got me into speaking Tagalog in a faster way, an accelerated way, yeah, it was definitely tough communication. She could still speak English, but she much preferred to speak Tagalog. That and other things didn't work out. Then another girl, when she was mad at me, she would not want to translate English words to me. She would just speak Tagalog. And then I'd be like, wait, what'd you say? Because she was speaking so fast. And I'm like, it's so hard. I'm like trying my best to like understand and keep up, but it's just, like it was such a struggle, especially when they were mad. They're angry, they speak fast, and they leave you in the dust. And you still didn't know what they were saying. So you don't know how to fix it. But anyway, and those are just like little tidbits of experience that I had just trying to learn the language, to learn the culture, and ultimately the people that were closest to me. My fiance, Leanne, I love her. She literally is the best of both worlds. Although she's born in the Philippines, naturally speaks Tagalog, she still speaks English well. And I think I see like a whole nother layer of her when she could just be herself. That even though she could speak like Taglish, Tagalog English, like I still see that part of her that just speaks her mind. Like I don't always have to keep saying like, what'd you say? What does that mean? And occasionally I still do that, but not as often. I just feel like she's just free flowing with her expression. She doesn't have to like explain her feelings as much because I can understand her intentions. I can understand what she's trying to get at. Imagine being like a 6th grader, only having limited vocabulary with like limited thinking. You can't express yourself as fully as you want to. And that's how I would kind of like treat it for me. Like I try to express myself in Tagalog, but I can't because my vocabulary is so limited. So I have to explain it in English. But for her, she doesn't necessarily have to do that. She could just speak her mind in Tagalog. I could speak it, and she doesn't have to feel limited not only in language, but in thought. That her point is just driven home right then and there with the first sentence in her native language. And I think that really just deepens the love. Yes, it's a blessing to really embrace that Filipino culture and to be engaged with someone who just makes me feel at home, who grew up Filipino, who has those same values, who doesn't really feel like they have to change their ways, that she's accepted as she is, and she makes me feel the same way. At the end of the day, it's not about just having a new skill in my pocket, but it's about bringing the people who are closest to my heart even closer, and that we can continue the cycle of reestablishing our identities, growing, reinforcing love, and growing our love and our relationship deeper. There's one word that I learned in middle school that I didn't like, and that's ethnocentrism. Thinking that your way of living is the correct way, especially when it comes to cultures. Yeah, I felt that sense of belonging, and yeah, it's cool when everybody's like, yeah, Manny Pacquiao! Or yeah, it's cool to see like a Filipino golfer or a Filipino like athlete, somebody Filipino famous, internationally renowned and recognized. But I think it's just silly to think that, yeah, being Filipino is the best thing in the world. Everybody's identity is valued. One is not better than the other. Listen, I was born into rice and thinking that rice was the best thing in the world, and it still is. But then I started eating things like Taco Bell was no longer the standard when I had real Mexican food. Korean fried chicken. Ooh! Sushi? Oh, kimbap. The world is just a wonderful place, and everybody's got their own beautiful part of their culture that they can share, especially the food. I'm American and Filipino. There's no need for me to renounce one or the other. I have the benefit of experiencing both worlds, and I can take the best of both worlds and just mesh it into one. I understand my fiance better each day, but I also think this was accelerated by learning more about the culture and the language. I hear her natural voice, hear her natural thoughts. It's not filtered through an English filter, and now I express myself differently. I'm like a different Filipino. Now sometimes I feel like an educator when I translate, and I feel like another personality when I speak Tagalog versus speaking English. I don't think, I know. I love my fiance. I love Leanne more now, not only because I understand her language, but her heart. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Now, I still don't understand everything, but I definitely understand more. My life is fuller because of this. And I leave you with videos, love languages, or maybe something else. Thanks for watching.